Tell me, have you ever felt that feeling you get when you destroy something that was once close to you? Say an important piece of your work, or an heirloom, perhaps something as simple as a childhood toy. Even if you did it by accident, you feel this wave of regret only moments after. Why did I do that? All these years, I cherished this thing, and in but a second, it was gone. It's sad to think that all you care for can be destroyed in but a moment. The heartache you must feel when this does occur can be unfathomable if you have yet to feel it yourself. Truly, it is a feeling you cannot describe with mere words alone. We are but humble beings when you think about it. Like ants to some forces in our world, our emotions must seem immature compared to the likes of dragons and other higher beings. But it's quite rare that we have devised of something that they have not. Yet sometimes they indeed look at our secrets and covet them for themselves. See, today I think we have enough context to talk about something quite unique. We have spoken of dragons, and we have spoken of liches. Now, what happens if you combine the two? When a dragon looks at the spells of man and decides to become a Dracolich? Well, as you can imagine, it's actually quite a different process they undertake, simply due to their greater and much more powerful soul. You see, the first Dracoliches were not actually made by adventurous dragons, but human cultists who wanted to bring in a future one of them had foreseen. But that's a long story for another day. Just know that they made the first few Dracoliches. But the Dracoliches were in no way loyal to them. In fact, the cultists were the ones loyal to them in most cases. But I'm skipping a little ahead. Let's quickly get into why some dragons would become a Dracolich. For it's actually not quite as simple as you would think. See, dragons are quite egotistical creatures, as you no doubt know by now. Even the most kindly and humble ones will remind you every now and again that you are but bugs to them. And when their soul would naturally pass on, as you might expect, they have to give up everything they have done here. This would mean the loss of their titles, and more importantly, their hoard. This is the primary reason most do so. They refuse to give up on what they have here. They refuse to carry on into the next life and wish to remain. And like normal liches, they forsake their afterlife in order to continue in this one. And the second reason for them is because they actually are waiting for something. See, as long-lived as they are, they often develop ambitions akin to a lich, one that can take whole ages to enact. And when they realize that their final, over 1,000-year lifespan is just not enough for their plan to take place, they will consider making it an endless one. And the final one I shall talk about is their cultist one. For yes, cultists still do turn dragons into Dracoliches every now and again, or more rather, they convince them to do so, because dragon worshippers are not going to have the want, let alone the capability, to actually force one to do so. But regardless of their meanings for undertaking it, the major first problem all of them are going to face is the same, and that's just storing their soul in an object in the first place. See, like a normal lich, the Dracolich's first step is going to be the creation of its phylactery, but unlike a regular lich, their souls are massive, magically speaking, so they can't really fit it within a small locket or box like them, so they have to think outside of it. The box, I mean. You see, dragon souls are as stubborn as they are, and for this reason you can't really fit them within normally made phylacteries. Even if you scale them up to the dragon's size, it still wouldn't work. You need something just inherently more powerful in order to contain them. They, like normal liches' phylacteries, can have several forms, but they are vastly more limited in comparison, with almost all of them being some form of giant gem being held within a cage-like contraption, typically with chains linking them. What the gem and the types of metal are is the only thing you could really customize about the thing. The creation of which requires both a consenting dragon and a large group of mages, and I must note that only one of them involved needs to be a wizard. The others, including the dragon, don't need to be for the process to proceed, yet Well, it's going to be drastically easier if they all are. Let's just say the wizard will be pulling more than their weight if they are the only one. The second step is also like that of the Lich, the creation of their concoction, although I know that most of the ingredients of the potion are in fact different from the normal one. They do share one or two to my knowledge though. This has to be made by the humanoid helpers, but consumed by the dragon, obviously, who, unlike a normal Lich, will die very quickly in comparison. We're talking mere moments here, other than the hours of agony that a Lich goes through. In fact, if the dragon has enough time to mention the pain it is in, that's probably a good indicator that something has indeed gone horribly wrong. For, like the creation of a Lich, it is a difficult process that can easily end in disaster, not just for the dragon, but all nearby. Fortunately, as something does go wrong, they don't really turn into horrific monstrosities and agonizing torturous states of matter, but they just die slowly in agonizing death. That's not fortunate at all. Why did I phrase it like that? Anyway, if all the steps do indeed go correctly, then the dragon's soul will visibly be seen leaving its body and entering the gem, and they will become a Dracolich. Then, interestingly, the soul will leave the gem again and re-enter the old and lost body. And this is perhaps the biggest difference between the Lich and the Dracolich, for they don't actually reconstitute their bodies. See, if the Dracolich's body is destroyed, it is in fact just lost like a normal creature's body is, and the soul can be seen whizzing right back into the gem, although the speed will be impossible to follow if it is far away. But they can come back. It just requires someone else's body, specifically that of another dragon or something equal to their power level, which, I'm gonna be honest, isn't many things. I'm not entirely sure of what the range of this actually is, and I suspect, like so many aspects of creatures like this, it depends on the actual power of the individual Dracolich. But regardless, this is partly the reason why they just have to keep various servants around, so that they could bring them a replacement body should something happen. So with all this in mind, it's quite easy to say that they really got a worse deal when compared to regular Liches. To make things even worse for them, their phylactery is just a lot easier to destroy. Not to mention the thing is absolutely massive, and due to its construction requirements, it can only really look one way, which means you're probably going to instantly recognize what their phylactery is. And any real powerful magical damage can destroy it. In fact, there are even weird magical caveats I have learned that can accidentally destroy it. For an example, if the body of the Dracolich is destroyed and the soul is back in the gem, and you just teleport the gem to another plane of a reality, their soul just dies. Like that. So with that in mind, you might be wondering, what are the major benefits they get for becoming this state? After all, the Liches gain so many new powers and abilities. What do the Dracoliches get? And while you'd think it's a lot, but in reality it's close to nothing. They don't get any new spells, they merely get to keep the ones they had for being natural sorcerers. They don't gain new powers or abilities, they just keep their old ones. They can technically change what type of dragon they are, but they have to go out and kill one of that type to do so, and steal their body. I suppose that gives them a backup body, which is definitely useful given their condition. They may become immune to poisons and necrotic energies, but some of them could have been immune to those already. They can get better at resisting magical effects, but this is by no means an immunity to them, so I can't call much of it a benefit to begin with. In reality, the only real and clear benefit they get is their immortality, which is by no means a minor boon at all, but is it worth it? I mean, people question if becoming a regular Lich is worth it. After all, can anything be worth your already immortal soul? Does staying in this life really mean giving up eternity of peace? Perhaps if you lived an evil life, that means it's worth it, but dragons don't really play by those rules either. Their afterlife has completely different requirements to our own. See, that's why I had the speech at the beginning, the one of loss and regret. Most Dracoliches end up feeling about it two ways. The more common ones actually end up becoming something else is lacking, serving someone or something greater than them, and sometimes it's actually just a regular Lich. The Dracolich, not having a choice in the matter, kind of starts to accept this fate of theirs. But those who remain free end up regretting it. I have had to deal with about 3 Dracoliches now, and while 2 of them were the usual monsters you would imagine that served someone else, one of them was more tragic. A sorrowful tale of regret. See, one gold dragon by the name of Vistacron was convinced to become one by another dragon. She spent the first few hundred years planning and scheming like all the others, admiring with hungry, ambitious eyes the world she would take. Then, one after another, she saw other Dracoliches fall. One less rival to worry about, she first thought. But then another one did, and then another. She then learned that humanoid liches would always come back, but Dracoliches needed to achieve something before they could do so. This upset her. She felt that this was unfair, that being as powerful and mighty as she was, to have a shorter, weaker deer was outrageous. But at first, she would rationalize it away. I was already greater. I don't need a power boost. Then she would learn that a lich can in fact beat and even domineer a Dracolich. Then her mind just sort of fell apart. What have I done? She must have cried to herself. All this power, and I have naught to show for it. All this gain, and it will one day turn to dust. I will not outlive this world, but crumble into it. When I and the dragon I ride Zamuk cleared out her dungeon, we encountered this wavering Dracolich. She didn't even put up a fight. No traps barred our path. Sure, her minions tried to stop us, but they were in no way ordered to do so by her. When we did meet face to face, all she did was plead for her own destruction. She didn't even try to fight, she merely wished for a quick end. I had to plead with her why. You sacrificed everything to become this, gave up your own afterlife for this chance. Why throw it away? She simply told me that there was only one reason. I will eventually end. Even those liches made from man fall, and they are greater than I. How could I hope to outlive eternity, is what she told me. Part of me was contemplating giving a speech to somehow aid her, but I also realized she's quite a dangerous monster. But before I could fully think of anything to do, Zamuk just obliged her request and destroyed her phylactery in a moment. At a first glance, you would think something like a Dracolich would be the mightiest of all things, and they are still greater than almost everything around, don't get me wrong, but the comparison to what they were, compared to what they could have become, it just seems unfair at the state that they exist in. See, dragons only get stronger with age, unlike us. They peak at the moment just before their death, not at some middle point. But despite what people think, they don't actually have a set death point or lifespan. The most stubborn dragons, albeit the very powerful ones, can just keep going. Some of them have made it to thousands of years purely because they just refuse to die. But the Dracolich abandons this. They forsake the idea of earning honorable natural power for the quick guarantee of immortality, freezing them at their current position. And they are but a candle to the immense powers that humanoid liches get. While, yes, they get immortality, them dying is still a huge setback, unlike the liches who just need to wait a little bit. They don't get new abilities or even the ability to become something greater later on. Their magical capability is not increased, just sustained, like that of their dragon ones. That's the sad truth about the Dracoliches. They, in almost every regard, sacrifice what really matters, all potential they could have gained, to freeze themselves in the point they are at now. Too afraid of the inevitability, and so seek to stop here. The problem is that even with their mighty intellect, they somehow fail to see that everyone dies, even if you fight it with all you have. But this death is what gives our life meaning. If you were given everything you wanted in a moment without earning it, what would it be worth? Would you actually still want it, or would you just get bored of it? If you had an infinite amount of days to plan something, would you ever actually carry it out, or would you just plan forever? The Dracolich, more than the Lich, shows just how perfectly horrible this state of being actually is. They are not a fantastic step up in power, merely the denial of their purpose in this world. The childlike demand of wanting to have everything, to try and deny what is clear and in front of you. The denial of what's right and wrong. It's sad. The Dracolich, as mighty and intimidating as they are, to me, are just sad. Unlike most creatures I have and will talk about, I pity them. A being that was so mighty, that ceiling was almost limitless, and yet they are lowered merely by their own fears. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.